relations in most workplaces are governed by the National Labor Relations Act. That is not the case for workers on the railroads or the airline industry. That is, they are governed by what's called the Railway Labor Act, which was ran through Congress a century ago in the 1920s, because, or in direct response to workers doing exactly what you're saying, Jen. The establishment saw how railroad workers specifically could bring this country and this economy to its knees when they struck in the late 1800s and in the early 1900s. And so they freaked the hell out, and they created this special Rube Goldberg system of rules that is essentially entirely designed to prevent a railroad strike. And so that is why railroad workers were so hamstrung last year, even though their concerns were incredibly legitimate, even though, you know, like as we're seeing now, we all have a vested interest in the things that they were raising, but their legal recourse has been severely limited by this. But the point that you raise is, I think, where we need to get our heads at, because we need to understand, if we look at labor history, not just labor history, a lot of the greatest social upheavals and civil rights movements in this country were illegal at the time, right? And that's because, like, law does not dictate good. Law reflects how good is defined within a current given society. And you know, if that society is run by landowning white dudes who like are racist as hell, then the laws are probably going to reflect that as well, right? That's what progress looks like, is moving past the limitations of our history. We don't have to just say, well, it's illegal, so, you know, nothing can be done about it. That has never been the labor movement's MO. Right now, workers in the United Kingdom are going on strike across industries, right? Rail workers, who I've interviewed on my show as well, higher education workers, healthcare workers with the National Health Service, ambulance drivers, civil servants, so on and so forth. And what the Tory government is trying to do is essentially ram through a new law that would force workers to cross their own picket lines during a strike and maintain a, quote, a government determined minimum level of service in order to prevent, you know, disruption during a strike. And disruption is the whole point of a strike. Exactly. Now, here in the United States, the Supreme Court may be about to take a hammer blow to workers' rights as we speak. There is a case in the Supreme Court right now. It's Glacier Northwest versus a Teamsters local whose number I forget right now. I apologize. But the whole point of this case, and we know how this right-wing stacked Supreme Court is probably going to rule. What it would mean is essentially businesses can sue unions out of existence for any economic damages incurred during a strike, which again is the whole point of a strike. So like I bring all that up to really emphasize your point, Jen, that like the ruling class is not playing by the same rules that we are. In fact, they are trying to rig the rules even more so that we never actually win. And the sooner we recognize that, the more that we can see how we can still work within the existing laws, but also we need to understand how those laws are being shaped and reshaped to prevent us from making the changes that we need to see in this country.
Yeah, we can't even get a serious discussion about the PRO Act. like the bare minimum, which for a state like Florida, you know, we're right to work here. So like for us, it would be significant. But otherwise, it's a pretty bare bones, and we can't even have a discussion on that.
Yeah, we're faced with a very difficult situation right now, because you're seeing not just how powerful these mega corporations are. Norfolk Southern happens to be a major financial benefactor to both the RNC and the DNC, even though Democrats have a very hard time wrapping that around their head.
You guys are gonna turn people into the Joker, man. I'm like right there right now.
We're only calling it as we see it. We're calling balls and strikes. And you know what I find just so unbelievable is the PR campaign that the Democratic establishment will go to on behalf of Buttigieg. It really is amazing.
That man.
That the length that they will go. And what we pointed out last night on the other podcast we were on, Due Dissonance, is that, you know, Trump announced that he was going to East Palestine about 5 days before he actually went there. There was an opening for somebody like Pete, even though Joe is really the one who should have went, but nevertheless could have had a high-ranking, noted known Democratic figure go there, and they still didn't do it. And then Trump goes, and then Pete decides to go the very next day. It's just.
Here's what pisses me off about it. I actually don't care who goes there. I just want them to fix the problem. Remedy the problem as best as you can for as many people as you can, as fast as you can. That's it. That's what I want them to do. I don't even care if they go there. They don't have to go there. They could have an influx of people coming in and all sorts of stuff to try to remedy and remediate problems and accommodate people. I don't know.
But
whatever. Something.
But how can we possibly rectify this issue when it is being already leaked that the Biden administration is going to side with Norfolk Southern in court regarding any type of lawsuits against their organization? And you wonder why Trump and DeSantis are knocking at the door already, and we're 2 years out. It's you have to wonder if it's deliberate.
Oh, man. I do wonder. I mean, like, I won't speak to that because it's like, like when I'm high and I'm just like, man, these fucking people all know what they're doing. But like I guess in my sober, like sort of just kind of putting my practical glasses on. We published a great piece about this at The Real News last week by Adam Johnson, who's a co-host of the great podcast Citations Needed, also a brilliant writer, media critic. He wrote a really important piece on this about how the total failure on the Biden side specifically, but also on the Democratic side in general, aided by the failures of the quote unquote liberal media, really just like opened the door for the biggest, most like the greasiest right-wing grifters to just come in and make political hay out of it. And like, I mean, because the optics were freaking terrible, as you said, because what are regular people supposed to do when, this really awful train derailment happens? The emergency response, looks like hell has the gates of hell have opened up, right? And regular working people, I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, agnostic, these are human beings who don't deserve this, right? No. They are the ones who are being told to leave their homes immediately. Then they're the ones who are being told to come back. You're going to get $1,000 from Norfolk Southern. Don't worry, the water's safe to drink. Don't worry, the air's safe to breathe. Right?
I got to jump in there because
I feel livid.
Our title for tonight's show is poll shows that Biden supporters would drink the East Palestine water. And what's amazing
that sounds about right.
No, it was a Rasmussen poll, and they specifically asked them, the government says that the Biden administration specifically said that the water in East Palestine is safe to drink. Do you agree, and would you drink the water? And it was between absolutely at like 10% and then probably at like 35, 40%. And you're thinking, this can't be real. Like, you can't be this mindless regarding
sycophantic. They're very
that just, well, if Joe and his administration say it's okay, then it must be okay. And that to me is, it's scary because you look at people, the constant finger pointing at Fox News and Trump, and you're all in a cult and this and that. And I'm thinking, no, this is even worse because you guys are supposed to be the educated ones. You're supposed to be the smart people. The people who live in East Palestine is a reflection of most of rural America that are not highly educated, that work, let's say, jobs that are in dangerous areas regarding their health and whatnot. And they're just looking for somebody to come and help them. And yet you have these people that are looking at this situation and saying, that's not that bad.
I don't understand. Isn't this a scenario where like we would gear up people like in the National Guard and hazmat outfits and have them going in and doing everything they can to rectify the situation, helping people evacuate, helping find resources for people with animals, helping to subsidize people who have rural areas. Like, see, this could be remedied to some extent. Like, this could be handled in an infinitely better way, but that would require them to give a shit. Just to give a shit. Again, and that's the truth. If somebody really cared, they could fix this. If we have meanwhile, where's our president? He's over giving more money in weapons to Ukraine. Like,
Max, they are ramping up that money at a dangerous level.
But it's
now.
like, are you serious? Like, are we really thinking that there's not a way to better facilitate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you could undo a toxic spill. Obviously, you can't undo. Are we thinking really that this couldn't be handled better?
How could you look at that
I don't
black
understand.
cloud in
I don't
the
understand.
sky
I'm so annoyed.
and think that that water is
And
safe
by
to
the
drink?
way, honestly, unless that stuff is tested, the air, the soil, the water, and cleared by an entity that has nothing to gain financially or politically, then I refuse to accept that as information. I don't care. Like, this is ridiculous. They cannot monitor their own stuff. I'm livid.
Norfolk Southern has already checked everything.
Oh, wow.
And they have determined that everyth's safe.
Sure.
So it's fine.
Yeah. And then here's your $1,000.
It's
I'm like beyond irate with
it's
this.
another
It's just
as well you should
It's
be.
like-
I am like I'm losing my goddamn mind over
Like,
here.
this is
it's another
absurd.
Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi. That's exactly.
And they're
what it
sitting there
is.
and people are arguing as though, well, do we blame the governor or the president? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that.
And you like, I'm really glad that you'll just mention that we brought up in the same breath.
Yeah.
Flint, right? That we're bringing up Jackson, Mississippi. We were bringing up Chicago. There was a massive study last year showing like that a vast swath of Chicago, predominantly the poor black and brown side, is getting lead poisoned, right? And like, this is happening all over the place. And so to hook it back quickly to what I was saying about how the bungled response from the Democrats, from the mainstream media, that really kind of created this sort of vacuum where people felt like no one was paying attention to them because they weren't, right? And so that enabled grifters like JD Vance and Tucker Carlson and even Trump, right, to come in and capitalize on it because no one on the other side was doing jack shit about it, right? And then they turn it into this like just gross political point scoring where it's like, oh, this is a manufactured thing because this is a Trump country. These are white people. These are white working class uneducated
They
voters.
deserve this because they voted this way.
Right. Well, anyone who says that like is a piece of shit.
As if that
frankly.
train couldn't have derailed in a blue county.
They are. That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Is these derailments are happening in blue counties, red counties, all over the goddamn place. Just like children are being lead poisoned in
everywhere.
Democratic states, Republican states. The common denominator is that the ruling establishment on the government side, on the industry side, they do not give a shit about poor and working people. They want us to die. They could care less what happens to us. That is very much a bipartisan, like consensus. We know this by now. And so when people see a catastrophe like this and they immediately, like you guys said, they immediately say, which party is more to blame for this? Like, it shows you the extent to the sort of like ideological brain rot that you have to have in this country because that's what we're taught. And it's like you miss the whole point. It's like I don't care about these parties. I care about the people who are suffering from this. I care about the people who are being led astray or misled about the quality of their water, who are just trying to know if they can give their kids the water from the tap.
Right.
Like all of us should be able to say, like, you know what, fuck both parties. Like, I want to help these people. Why is no one helping these people? And then, like, we should realize that both Democrats and Republicans are equally responsible for this mess in myriad ways. We don't have to go into all of it. You guys can look at the other great reporting that's been out there by The Lever, by Breaking Points, by us.
Max, what the real problem is. The real problem isn't have anything to do with that, right? Like the real problem is capitalism is killing the planet.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.